Anna, thank you for joining. Can you please tell me about yourself?
Of course, thank you for your time and chance to join these videos. I am test automation engineer and I do both manual and automation testing for a full stack, for a front end as well as for a back end. As a main programming language, I use Java, and I'm familiar with agile and waterfall methodologies. And I was involved for functional testing, integration testing, end-to-end testing, regression, and smoke testing. And for testing front end, I use Selenium WebDriver. And also I'm familiar with Cucumber BTD framework and TestNG as well. For a testing backend, for an API, I use Postman for testing manually, and I use REST Assured library for automation purpose. And then for a testing database manually, I use PostgreSQL. And for automation purpose, I use JDBC library. And also, as a project management tool, I use Jira and a Confluence. On a Jira, we have our user story. We store there our test cases. And as a bug tracking tools, also we use Jira. And on a Confluence, we have all documentation and other things what we need for a project. It's pretty much about myself. If you have any question, we'll happy to answer you.
Great, thank you. Can you tell me what is a smoke testing?
Smoke testing, we do main and critical functionality. We test it on a smoke testing and make sure if that functionality working well.
How many usually we have test case in a smoke testing?
Like around 45, 50.
50. What about regression testing? What's a regression testing?
Regression testing when we test all test cases, and usually it's around, it depends, but it's around 400, 500. And I do regression testing before a release.
And how often you have the release?
Every 4 sprints.
Every 4 sprints. So regression testing is you retest all your test cases when some changes made to the application, and you do the regression testing before every release. What is the bug lifecycle?
When I execute my test cases, and if something working not like expected, and I thought it's a bug, first of all, I will check a few times. And after I'm sure it's bug, and then I will reach out to developer, and if he agree, I will open a bug ticket. I will assign it, and I will open, assign, and then developer should fix it. After fix it, I need to retest it. If it's working well, I will close it bug ticket, but if it's still working not like as expected, I will reassign it to developer again until it will work it smoothly.
Great. Let's say you open the defect, a bug, and you go to developer and you say it's a bug, but the developer says it's not a bug. How would you resolve this situation?
Probably we will schedule bug triage meeting where tester, developer, and product owner will discuss that bug and came up with idea how to solve it.
It's three amigos meeting, right?
Yes.
Where tester and the developer and the product owner come together to discuss the bug, and you resolve there.
Yes, three amigos meeting. Sorry.
Can you tell me the STLC, software testing lifecycle steps?
Of course. First one is requirement analysis, then test plan, then test case development, then environment setup, and then test case execution and test closure.
Great. Can you tell me your agile process? How long is your sprint?
Yes, our sprint during 2 weeks, and we follow all agile meetings, which is a sprint planning meeting, daily stand-up meeting, demo meeting, and retrospective meeting. And we have our structure of team. It's 9 people, 6 developer, 3 tester, and 1 product owner.
And what about Scrum Master?
We have, but he on a few teams.
Got it. When your sprint starts and when it ends?
Usually it starts on a Wednesday and ends on a Tuesday. 2 weeks.
And what pointing system do you use to point your user stories?
Fibonacci sequence, we use that to give a points.
What meeting you give the points for your user stories?
On a daily stand-up, on a sprint planning meeting.
What do you do on sprint retrospective meeting?
It's always on the end of the sprint, and we give kind of like feedback what we need to stop doing, what we need to continue doing, and what we need to start doing. Like we give some ideas what need to improve, what need to add, and what we don't need to do anymore.
What day of the sprint you have that's retrospective meeting?
On that meeting on a Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, what is the sprint grooming meeting?
Sprint grooming meeting, it's a part of a sprint planning meeting where we decide what we will do on an oncoming sprint. When we discuss about user story, what we will work.
So when you usually have on the what day of the week you have the sprint grooming meeting?
It's can be on a Tuesday before start of a new sprint.
That's correct. It's gonna be either one day before the new sprint or 2 days, 1 or 2 days before the new sprint, either Monday or Tuesday. In that meeting, you usually discuss and you will get ready for the upcoming sprint by reviewing the user stories and selecting what user stories you'll be working on the next sprint. What's the difference between sprint backlog and a product backlog?
Product backlog, it's a backlog where all test cases for a project, and the sprint backlog, it's just a user story which we will work on that sprint, the current sprint.
The sprint backlog is the stories that you will work on the current sprint, and the product backlog is the old stories we have for upcoming sprints. Okay. Can you tell me the process of your sprint? What do you do during the sprint, 2 weeks as a test engineer, from your first day till the last day of the sprint?
On the beginning of a sprint, I always get requirements and start to analyze it, start to learn that new feature. And then I will start to create test cases. And then after review with my test cases, I will execute it manually. It will be on the middle of the sprint. And then on the end of the sprint, I will start to do automation part.
Good. And after automation?
After automation, of course, I will demonstrate it on a demo meeting. And then I will attend retrospective meeting and its sprint is done.
Good. Who reviews your test cases?
It's my team members review it and give me feedback.
Team members and product
owner, yeah.
And how many test cases you usually write per user story?
Around 10, 15, I would say.
What kind of scenarios you apply while you're writing that?
Scenarios.
Test cases.
I would say it's like 2 scenarios, positive and negative. First I do with positive scenarios and then negative.
And where do you write your test cases?
I use Qtest. It's additional tool in Jira. We write there.
Good. You need the test data for your test cases. Where do you get the test data?
Usually I create it by my own, but if it's some credential, like example, I will do request for my team and they will provide me that credential or some required data.
If you have questions regarding the requirement, whom you reach out?
Product owner or developer. We can discuss it with a developer too.
Okay. Right. I see that you have an experience with the Java. How would you rate yourself on Java out from 1 to 10?
I would say 8.
8. Good. Can you tell me the OOP concepts of the Java and where do you use them in your framework?
Of course, OOP, it's an object-oriented programming. It is used to create more maintenance, efficient, organized, and secure code by implementing set of rules such as encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. And where I use it in my framework, like example for Cucumber framework, when we do testing of API, we handle payload by project class, by creating project classes, and we create we use their access modifier, and we give for our fields private access modifier in order to protect the data, and then we will give them access through getters and setters methods. Also, we use polymorphism when we use object, like example, list equal to array list, map equal to a new hash map, or when we do testing of front end, we use WebDriver equals to new Chrome driver. It's also polymorphic object. And what else?
What about inheritance? Where do you use inheritance on your framework?
Like example, on a TestNG framework, we have test base class, and there we store our before and after method, and then our steps package. Every class will extend that test base class, and it will inherit before and after method.
We don't have a steps package, right? We have tests package in the TestNG framework, or any package name, right? That will have a test classes, and in every test class, we will inherit the test base class that will have before and after methods.
Yeah.
Can you tell what's a static keyword in Java?
Of course, static keyword we can apply for a method and for variables. It means it will belong to the class, and we can call directly by class name.
What is the final keyword in Java?
Final keyword we can apply for class, method, and variables. If it's for a class, that class cannot be overridden cannot extend it anymore. If it's a method, it cannot be overridden anymore. And if it's variables, you cannot to change value because it's a final.
Reinitialize the value, right?
Yeah.
Change the value, that's correct. What is the constructor in Java?
Constructor we need in order to initialize instant variable while object is being created. It should have same name as a class name. It doesn't have return type. And we need it for creating object.
Okay. What does it help when you're creating an object? The constructor.
It's initialize instant variable.
Instance variable. What's a class variable?
It's belong to the class that variable.
Okay, and what keyword we use to make the variable a class variable?
Static.
Static.
Yes.
Great. Can you tell me what's the difference between a string and a string builder?
Sure. A string is immutable class. It's not changeable. When we want to modify value of a string, it will be always creating new object on a memory. And string builder, it's a mutable class, means changeable. When we want to modify or change value, it will change existing object. It's much better way to use string builder for a memory.
Great. What's the difference between array and array list?
It's both linear data structure. Array has fixed size. Array list, it's more dynamic, growing as much as needed. Array, we can use for array just both primitive and reference data type. For array list, we can use just reference data type or wrapper class. And both store value with indexes. And on a array list, we have that get, that add methods.
Great, very good. There's two types of the exceptions in Java.
Yeah.
What are those exceptions?
It's one is a compile time, and next one it's runtime exception.
What's the difference between them?
Compile time.
Compile time gives a compilation error, and we should handle that error. Should handle that exception. We gotta put it either to try-catch block or in a method signature. Runtime exception, it will not give any compilation error, and we have an option to handle it in a try-catch block, or we have an option to not handle that exception. Can you tell me what's the difference between list, set, and map in Java?
Sure, it's all interface, and a list array list is implement that interface, and it's store in the indexes, value store in the indexes. Set is hash set implements that interface, and set store only unique value, and map hash map implements that interface, and map store value on a pair format as a key and a value, where key should be always unique and value can be anything. Yeah, it's about it.
Good. One more question. What is the method overloading?
Method overloading always happen in the same class when multiple methods have a same name, but parameters, amount of parameters can be different, and type of parameter can be different, and return time type can be different too.
What should be the same?
Method name should be the same. Yeah.
Right. Coming to the Selenium WebDriver, I see you have an experience of Selenium WebDriver. What is the advantages of Selenium WebDriver?
Selenium WebDriver, it support various of languages, and it's working with different type of tools, and it help us to automate front end UI of application, and
is this open source?
Open source, yes, for years.
How do you handle drop downs in Selenium WebDriver?
Drop down, we need to create first of all object of a select class, and then we can select by value, by index, and by visible text.
Great. How do you handle multiple windows on Selenium WebDriver?
By using getWindowHandles method, and it will store ID of a windows as a list.
It stores as a set.
As a set, because it's a unique value, yeah. And it that ID returns as a string value, unique ID of each windows.
Okay, and how do you switch to the window?
Driver.switch, and choose which window needs.
Okay, driver.switch to that window, and we need to provide the ID of the window.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of different weights in the Selenium?
It's a 3 type of weights: implicit weights, explicit weight, and fluent weight.
Okay, what's the difference between implicit and explicit weights?
Implicit weight, it's kind of like global method to wait until all web elements will be loaded. And explicit weights, it's more specific. We use it when we need to wait until some specific condition and some particular element, like example, wait until element to be visible or to be clickable.
Very good. Coming to TestNG framework, tell me different annotations in TestNG.
Before and after method, it's annotation.
What else?
Test, the main annotation, data provider annotation. And we have before and after suite, before and after test, before and after class too.
What is data provider annotation?
Data provider, we need to test with multiple set of data, and we mentioned that data provider, we create separate method for data provider. That method will return multi-dimensional array with a different data, and then we need to mention name of the data provider on a test annotation level and add and we need to add for our method, I forget the words.
Okay, so we need to add the method name to the test method and need to provide the parameters for that method. Yeah. You say it's returning multi-dimensional array. What is the data type of that array?
Better way to use object because it will cover for any data type.
Okay. And what's the testing type we call that when we test the functionality with the different sets of data using the data provider?
DDT, data-driven testing.
Very good. How do you prioritize your tests in TestNG framework?
By using priority keyword, we will mention on a test annotation level.
What's the default value of priority parameter in a test annotation? When you try to prioritize your test methods, if you don't provide priority parameter for your test annotation, what is going to be the default value for it?
0.
0. Good.
Yeah.
How do you group your tests in TestNG?
Group name, tag name on a Cucumber group name, and we will mention on a test annotation level, and then we have a testng.xml file where we can mention what kind of group we want to run, and then we can mention name of class which we will run. Yeah, on a testng.xml file.
Okay, good. Coming to the Cucumber framework. In a Cucumber framework, can you tell me what is the background keyword in the feature file?
On the background keyword, usually we use a repetitive step. We put it in the beginning, and then for every scenarios, it will repetitive running.
It will run before every scenario in the same preset file.
Yeah, if it's repetitive step.
Good. What is the difference between data table and examples table?
Data table, it's just regular data table which will run in a single step.
Yeah.
And example table we have when we use scenario outline, we have example table, and that example table have multiple lines, and it will run multiple times, depends how many row on that tables.
Good. And data table, what data types we convert the data table into when we are implementing that method?
It can be list, it can be list of list, can be map, it can be map of list.
List of maps.
List of maps, yes.
That's good. If you have a large data for testing, let's say you have hundreds of the data and you want to test that, are you going to use data table or examples table, or you're gonna use something different?
For that scenario, we have option to use Apache POI library, where we conduct our test data, yes, folder.
In Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, and on Excel spreadsheet we store all the data if it's like huge amount of data. Much better way.
Okay. So you use external file like an Excel spreadsheet, and you make and you write and read the data from Excel spreadsheet using Apache POI library.
Yes.
That's great. Okay. What is the glue keyword in runner class?
Glue keyword in runner class, we glue steps package. We provide name of a package, and on our steps package we have hooks class, where we have our before and after scenarios, and then we will run it.
Okay. So what do you usually have in a before and after methods?
Before and after methods, we don't have before and after methods. We have before and after scenarios on a cucumber.
Okay. No, there is a before and after. Not method, but just before and after annotations.
Yeah, before and after annotation. On the after, we have driver.quit.
Okay, what about before?
On the before, we have our web driver, and then we can set up their implicit wait and window, that maximize window, and what else? And that's
So in before annotated method, you set up the driver with providing implicitly wait and either maximizing the window, and after annotated method, you quit the driver. Coming to SQL.
Okay.
Can you tell me what's the difference between left join and inner join?
Left join and inner join. Left join will return value which is the same if it's a two table, and left join will return first of all value data which is same on a both table and then from a left table. If it's a right join, it will return first of all which is the same data from a both table and then from a right table.
What about inner join?
Inner join will return only data which is the same for both table.
Okay.
Between two.
Okay. So what is the difference between having and where keywords, conditions in the SQL?
Where we use when we have one condition, but having we use when we have multiple conditions.
No. Where we use when we do a conditions, and having we use where in condition, if we have aggregate function, or we call it multi-row function like a max, min, count, sum, these are the aggregate functions. If we are using the aggregate functions in our condition, then we are using having keyword. If you don't have any aggregate function on our condition, then we are using where keyword.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah.
What's the difference between group by and order by?
Group by, it will return, it will group by some name of a table. And the second one?
Order by.
Order by ascending or descending orders. Ascending is from smallest to biggest, descending from a biggest to smallest.
Okay. And how would you get the unique values from the table?
I forget actually answer.
So we use listing keyword.
Listing, yeah.
Coming to JDBC, I see that you have an experience with the JDBC. For the JDBC, what are the 3 interfaces we use in order to make a connection to database?
Okay, first one, it's a connection interface, then statement and result set.
When we are making a connection, what are the details we need to provide to the connection?
First parameter, it's a URL, then login and password.
Username and password.
Username, yeah. Username and password.
Good. So when you get a data from database, in what Java data type you store that data in?
I can use in a list, in a map.
So list or map?
List.
We'll start in a list of maps.
List of maps.
List of maps, right? All right. Let's go to the REST APIs. List me the HTTP methods of the REST API.
It's a CRUD operation, create, which is get.
Create is post.
Create post, read, which is get. Post, get, put, and patch.
Patch.
And delete.
And delete.
Yes.
Right. So what's the difference between put and patch?
Put we use for a full updates, and patch we need for a partial updates.
Okay. Right.
And like example, if we use patch call and the data doesn't exist on the output, we can use put and it will work as a create. It will create that call.
If with the put we're trying to update a data and that data doesn't exist, then the put will behave like a post. It will create that data.
Yeah.
Good. What is the status code we get when we make a post API call?
201 created.
Okay, 201. What is the 404 status code?
Not founded when it's not data.
Okay. What is the difference between 401 and 403 status code?
401, it's authentication. When, like example, your session token is invalid or expired, and for 403, it's authorization, which is forbidden when you don't have access for some specific functionality.
What kind of token do you use?
I use JWT token, JSON Web Token, that has 3 parts: header, payload, and statement.
Header, payload, and signature.
Signature, yeah, signature.
Okay. What's the difference between path parameter and a query parameter?
Path parameter start with a slash, and query parameter it's always start with a question mark.
Sure. And how many query parameters we can have in the endpoint?
How many needs?
Okay, as many as we want.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we want to provide another query parameter in the endpoint, what syntax we use there?
And.
As.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of payloads you use? What data type of the payloads?
JSON type we use.
Do you know about XMLs? Have you worked with XMLs?
I know, but I haven't worked with it.
Okay. So imagine there is an endpoint, let's say students, that is creating a student. You have a endpoint, you have a payload, and in the payload of the that post API call, we have 2 fields. One is the student. One is the student name, which is going to have a name of the student. Second one will have a student address. And let's say we have one more, which is student date of birth. So we have 3 fields in that payload. And student name and student address is mandatory fields, and the student date of birth is optional field. So tell me what kind of scenarios you will apply to test this API call.
First of all, I will apply with the positive scenarios when I will set up with all things what we need, like URL with a valid endpoint, with the authorization token, and with the correct payload. And I will expect it's need post call.
Yes, it's post call.
And validate status code 201 and body. And then I will try to a few scenarios with negative scenarios. First one, I will try with a different endpoint, like wrong endpoint, and I will validate status code 400 batch request. And then I will try to do without one of the required field, like example without name or without address. Then I will try to do with without headers, like without authorization, and I will validate status code for one authentication, and then I will try, of course, test with that option, not fields. I will try to put it, and then I will try to don't put it. Check if, even if it's optional, if it works, if I will skip fill out that fields.
Let's say you remove the mandatory field student name and you made a post call and it gave you 200 status code. So what does that mean?
It's wrong, it's a bug, because it's a mandatory field. It should not allow me to create that call.
Very good. What else? What kind of other scenarios you would apply?
And
would you test the 500 status code server error? So we can apply 500 test scenario saying, hey, if something is wrong with the server while we're making this API call, that's supposed to give us 500 status code. That's another test scenario. And another test scenarios we can apply is we can do the boundary testing. While we're providing the student name, we gotta check from the requirement how many letters at least the student name should consist. If it says it should be 3 or more than 3 characters for student name, then we will try to test that with the 1 character. We will send a post call with the 1 character of the student name, and I will see if you're getting the proper error message. And it will have the maximum of the student name characters. Like let's say it says 50 characters at max. The student name can be at max 50 characters. Then we will send the API call with the student name that has more than 50 characters, and we will validate that we are getting the proper error message saying student name cannot be more than 50 characters. This is another testing scenarios. Yeah, that's additional testing scenarios which you have said. Next question is what kind of headers you will provide for a post call? What are some important headers that we need to provide?
Authorization token.
Authorization, okay, what else?
And content type
Content
and
type.
accept.
Accept. Very good.
Accept, yeah.
Accept means we are
That call accept data. Accept JSON data.
that API call. In a response, we accept the JSON type of data in the response payload, response body.
Yes.
When we say content type, we specify what data type we are sending with the request. What's the payload we are sending? Great. So where do you run your tests?
On my local machine, but also we set up it to run it on a Jenkins that will automatically run, and we schedule time. Like example, smoke testing, I set up to run it daily, and that Jenkins will generate a report with all details, what is pass, what is fail, and I will get that report to my email.
Can you set up the Jenkins jobs?
No, I just schedule runs my test, and that's all. And for setuping, responsible DevOps.
But do you have basic understanding of the setting up the Jenkins jobs?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
What kind of version control tool you use?
GitHub.
GitHub?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what steps you will take in order to make the pull request? What commands you will use in a Git in order to create the pull request?
First of all, pull to my computer, right?
No, pull request.
To send.
So for the pull request, first we are making the changes to our code. We create the branch, we make the changes to our branch,
and then
then we add, then we commit the code. And when we commit it, we pull the latest code from develop branch to make sure that we have the latest changes in our code before the push. And then once we pull the latest changes, then we will push the code to the remote repository. And once it is pushed, we will go ahead and create the pull request in the GitHub. Who reviews your code?
My other team members.
Okay, and where do you assign these reviewers?
Assign to the GitHub.
To the GitHub. When we do the pull request, we assign them
to the different team members.
Yes. Let's say you have a conflict on your merging, on your pull request. How would you resolve those conflicts?
We will set up probably a meeting to discuss how we can resolve it. Yeah, my answer.
That's good. In what scenarios you will have the conflicts in your code?
When we push our code at the same time.
When we make the changes to the same class or to the same file with the other teammate. Right?
Yes.
At that time, we will have the conflict. Great. So let's come back to some behavioral questions. Why you think that you are best candidate for this position?
Because I have good technical skills and communication skills that will allow me to efficiently work in a team, and I open to learn something new, and I can go along with any kind of people, and yeah, that's why.
Great. If we hire you, what you can bring on a table?
I will bring my knowledge and I can share my knowledge with the team, and I will work to deliver at time and smoothly working software.